O Prophet of Allah, know, fa'lam, that there is no one worthy of worship except Allah, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness of your sins. So knowledge comes first. And he also had a chapter there, Babul Fahmi fil Ilm, chapter understanding or comprehending matters of knowledge. So that means knowledge is not just some information that you put it on a computer or something, and anytime you need it, you just retrieve it, and that's it, you have knowledge. This is not what knowledge is. You have to understand it in the proper way. Understand it in the proper way. Is it that difficult to understand? No, it's not difficult. Alhamdulillah, it's easy. But either we will understand it right or misunderstand it. The Quran, for example, as Umar radiallahu anhu, he said, Al-Quran hammal awjuh. The Quran has more than one meanings to it. And he said about the people of innovations, فَإِنْ جَادَلُوكُمْ بِالْقُرْآنِ فَجَادِلُوهُمْ بِالسُّنَّةِ. If they argue with you with the Quran, argue with them with the Sunnah. Because the Sunnah explains the Quran. The Sunnah will explain the meaning of that context. If the verse can mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meanings, the Sunnah would come and explain to you that it means this. Right? So, the understanding is such an important thing. And he quoted the verse of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, that the Prophet ﷺ said, مَا يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. Whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intends or wants good for, He would make him comprehend the religion. This statement of the Prophet ﷺ also, if it comes into the heart of those who love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what would make them do? Whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants good for, He would make him comprehend the religion. That immediately would make the ones that love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I want to be among those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants good for me. So I would take the means to comprehend the religion of Islam. That's why the ulama, they say the opposite of this hadith is true. Meaning, if you change the meaning of it to say the opposite, whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want any good for him, what will He make him do? See if you sleep, what is it? Will make him not understand or comprehend the religion. Sah? Right? So if you don't comprehend the religion, that means this is not a good sign. That means we need to take the means to understand the religion in the proper way. Then how can we understand the religion? When the Prophet ﷺ explained that this ummah will split into so many different sects. When Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he said, the issue of misunderstanding, this is the real disease that befalls onto the ummah. To misunderstand something, to understand it wrong, to understand a verse, to twist its meaning, to fit your desire, or your business, or whatever there is, or your belief. Some people, they put set of beliefs first. We would believe in this and this and this, and then they search in the Quran for something that would give them some meaning that would fit whatever they decided that they want to believe in, and so on and so forth. So Ibn al-Qayyim, he said, to explain this, he said, وَهَلْ أَوْقَعَ الْقَدَرِيَّةِ وَالْمُرْجِئَةِ وَالْخَوَارِجِ وَالْمُعْتَزِلَةِ وَسَائِرْ طَوَائِفْ أَهْلِ الْبِدْعِ فِيمَا وَقَعُوا فِيهِ إِلَّا سُوءُ الْفَهْمِ عَنِ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. He said, the different deviant sects, like the Qadariyya, like the Murji'ah, like the Mu'tazila, like these deviant sects, the only thing that made them fall into these deviations is it anything other than the misunderstanding from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they didn't understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. They were not necessarily all of them evil people trying to destroy the religion. Some of them were very sincere, but sincerity alone is not enough. Wanting good is not enough. The person has to humble himself to gain the knowledge and to understand it in the proper way. And understanding it in the proper way is basically what we said, what the definition of al-ilm is. العلم قال الله, قال رسوله, قال الصحابة. They should never be separated. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said is the Quran. What the Prophet ﷺ said is the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. What the companions of Allah said, basically how they applied the Quran and the Sunnah. So this is something that we always have to stick to. This is the only way, by the way, that would unite the Muslims as an ummah. Right? Because if I make a group, and I claim that this group is on the truth, and I call you to my group, and I would set some rules to the group, and some things to be done in my group. Somebody would say, well, what is your evidence that this is what is right? Somebody else would have another group. and other groups, and many groups, right? What is the only thing that should bring people together is for all of us to be united on the Quran and the way the Prophet ﷺ, but then according to the way of the early generations of Islam, the companions of the Sahaba that we know for sure that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was pleased with them in understanding our belief, in understanding our matters of ibadah, and so on and so forth. And this is basically the knowledge that we need to seek. If we talk about stories about the early generations of Islam and the companions of Allah and how they spent their wealth and their health, and they went far places to gain the knowledge of the religion of Islam, it's such an amazing thing because they understood the value of it. When one of the companions, radiallahu anhum, Jabir ibn Abdullah, goes from Al-Madinah, this is in Sahih Imam Bukhari, he goes from Al-Madinah to the Sham in Syria, travels for a month, because he wants to get a hadith, one hadith from the Prophet ﷺ, that he knew something about it, but he wanted to seek the higher level of al-isnad or the chain of narration, to get it straight from that person that he heard it from the Prophet ﷺ. So he went there. Did he waste his life? When he went into this long trip, he did not take anything to sell in Syria and Sham. He did not go for any other intentions. He just went there. Once he reached, he knocked on the door of this companion, other companion of the Prophet ﷺ, and the man, when he came out and he said Jabir ibn Abdullah, and he could not believe that he came to him, and he hugged him and so on, and he asked him what was the hadith about such and such. He told him the hadith. He turned around and he left. To come on in this and that, no way. Jazakallah khairan, I came with that intention. Right? This is not a fairy tale. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used them to save the religion, so that we can have the hadith so easy that we would read it and benefit from it. But you see the rewards that they get. That they spend so much effort, yes, to save this religion for us, but every time we read a hadith and we say Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, Jabir ibn Abdullah radiallahu anhu, throughout generations, one generation after another, and how much there is in their balance and their good deeds. There's nothing more rewardable in one's life, and I hope that you're with me with this. Pay attention to that, it's very important, because when we look into our life, the reality of our life here is that we all shall die, no exception. Everybody shall die in this room, and everybody shall return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sooner or later, it doesn't matter, right? And after we return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is no need or there is no benefit of regretting what we did on the face of earth. It won't benefit us, there is no point of returning back. This is the only chance in this short period of time that we live to do the good deeds and to be away from the bad deeds, to do it in such a way that we would compete with one another, that our everlasting life afterwards depends on these few years that we live on the face of earth. Right? So, when you think about a deed, what is the deed that you would want to do that would give you the best of the reward in the short life that we live in? Our life is too short. But some people, they don't only live the 60, 70 years. Some people, if they are capable of living thousands of years, then definitely in matters of goodness and worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is definitely a great thing. And that's the only way that you can do that is through ilm. It's through the knowledge. Because the Prophet ﷺ said when a man dies, his book of deeds closed, finished. There's no more deeds to be added to it, except in 3 cases. If he has walad salih yad'u lahu, a righteous son or a daughter, because walad means an offspring, someone that was born. Daughter or a son that is righteous, that he would make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the deceased. You have children, but you don't know if they're going to be righteous or not. Something that is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if they are righteous, they might remember you once in a while. But you don't know their offspring will remember you or not. How many of you make dua to their grandparents? Maybe some. MashaAllah. Jazakumullah khairan. May Allah reward you. Great grandparents. Great to where? It has to start somewhere. Unless you're generous enough to say the dua that, oh Allah, forgive or have mercy on my forefathers and, وَالَّذِينَ سَبَقُونَ بِالْإِيمَانِ and so on. So to say it some general like this. But usually, this is still, mashallah, this is good, but it reaches the person in his grave, and he's benefiting from this, but most of the time it's limited to one generation, two generations, and then in the case they are righteous. So ولد صالح يدعو له. أو صدقة جارية, continuous charity. The continuous charity, as long as it's there, the person is receiving the reward. Somebody that have a well of water, for example. As long as people are drinking from this well of water, every time somebody drinks from it, he's getting the rewards of that. Building a hospital, right? He has some wealth, continuous charity to some orphans, whatever there is. But that will finish after some time, right? 100 years, less, more, whatever. But the third one, that is the most extended rewards that a person can get after his life. And that's why this is the most important thing. Knowledge that people will benefit from it. You taught somebody something of knowledge. The knowledge is قال Allah again, قال رسوله, قال الصحابة. It's not the motivating speeches, by the way, only, right? And the motivating speeches, if it doesn't have قال Allah, قال رسوله, قال الصحابة, then put question marks around it, right? The knowledge is something that needs patience. You know, it's easy to listen to some motivating speech and that's it. This is not the knowledge. This is just a reminder for people to be encouraged to do what is right, to seek the knowledge. The real way to seek knowledge, this is alhamdulillah, we hope that when we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we are doing that now, but to seek knowledge is to be patient enough to learn the Quran, to learn the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, to learn the books of belief and so on. That needs patience, needs sincerity, because you would get bored and you would translate that into action so that you're always steadfast. But the point of the ilm that is benefiting, right, how long that would take, this is something that is till the day of judgment. Till the day of judgment. How is that? We see that clearly from the works of the companions of Allah. Till now, we mention their names because they say this religion by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they pass this knowledge. The people of knowledge, the ai*imma of this deen, Imam Ahmad, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Hanifa, Imam Malik, right? Imam Sufyan al-Thawri, Abdullah ibn Mubarak, all these great ai*imma of this deen, their quotes, their sayings, their teachings, right? Something that goes on beyond centuries and centuries. And the same thing, even if you are not known throughout the history, right? You taught 10 people, even if it's something like teaching them how to recite Surah Al-Fatiha, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful. So you get the benefit of that by seeking the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for each person that you taught them, for example, to recite Surah Al-Fatiha. And every time they recite Surah Al-Fatiha, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when they get the rewards of that, you get also the rewards, the same rewards as they get, as long as our intentions are sincere. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man da'a ila huda," whoever calls to huda, to guidance, كان له مثل أجر فاعله لا ينقص ذلك من أجر شيئا. أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. That whoever calls him to guidance, into goodness, he will have the same reward as the one that do it, and it won't diminish his rewards. So these people would get rewards, and he would get the rewards also like them. But they would teach it to others, and the next one generation after another, one generation after another, and all of that in the balance of the deeds of the first one and the second one, and so on and so forth. So there's nothing better and nothing more extended for one's life than seeking knowledge and having this benefit extended to others. And that's the fruit of the ilm. And that's the intention that a person would get when he seeks the knowledge, is to extend this knowledge to those who come after him, to other people and so on. And that's why matters of da'wah, calling others to the deen of Islam, has to be with the condition of knowledge. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ أَنَا وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِي سُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ وَأَنَا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. Say, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, this is my way. هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ. I call unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ. With the condition of that it's on clear vision, clear knowledge. Me and those who follow me. So this is a condition for those who call unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that the Prophet ﷺ is ordered to say that me and my followers, they would call unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on clear vision, clear understanding, clear knowledge. And that's why Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he said in explaining this verse, he said, وَلَا يَكُونُ الرَّجُلُ مِنْ أَتْبَاعِ النَّبِيِّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ حَقًّا حتى يدعو إلى ما دعا إليه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم على رسوله. He said that the person would not be a true follower, not a follower, a true follower, a perfect follower of the Prophet ﷺ, unless he called to what the Prophet ﷺ called the people to on clear knowledge and vision. Because this is the job of the Messenger ﷺ. But if a person is lacking that, how can he call them to the truth? We have to be carrying the truth, and that is the ilm. قال الله قال رسوله قال الصحابة. There's so many things to be said about this, so many verses in the Quran, so many hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and so many in the stories even of the Quran. Like, for example, the story of Qarun, the cousin of Musa alayhi salam. Who are the ones that know the reality of what Qarun has? When the people get deceived by the wealth of Qarun, قالوا يا ليت لنا مثل ما أوتي قارون. When he came out with his adornment and his wealth to the people, what did the people? The people immediately split into two groups: the ignorant masses and the people of knowledge. The ignorant masses, they said, يا ليت لنا مثل ما أوتي قارون. We wish that we have like what Qarun has, all this wealth, right? What did the people of knowledge say? وقال الذين أوتوا العلم. Those who were given knowledge, they said, ويلكم ثواب الله خير لمن آمن وعمل صالحا وما يلقى إلا الصابرون. They said, woe to you, right? The reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is much better. ثواب الله خير لمن آمن, for those who believe. And only those who have patience would receive that patience when they see the temptations, but they seek the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This was the speech or the quote of the people of ilm, of the people of knowledge. And we know the rest of the story, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed Qarun and his wealth. And the people that said what they said, that they wish we have what Qarun has, they said, وَيْكَأَنَّ اللَّهَ يَبْسُطُ رِزْقَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ وَيَقْدِرُ. They said, we wish that we didn't say that. We see that the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He gives whoever He wills, whatever He wills subhanahu wa ta'ala. Usually the people of knowledge, they see the fitna before it comes. They see the calamities before it comes, because it's all there in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The way of Allah is all laid down in the Quran. The masses, they see it after it finishes, after it's all done and ruined and destroyed and everything. Now they realize, yeah, that's right. The people of knowledge, they know that from before, so they are taking the measures and the means and the precautions to protect themselves from any evil would affect them. The masses, they don't know that unless they would have the knowledge. How can we seek this knowledge, and how can we sincerely seek the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? By His mercy, gave us so much means, comfort and health and wealth and so much, right? And we should be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by seeking the knowledge. And by the way, there's no difference between men and women in this. The orders from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to seek knowledge was not for the men only, it's for both men and women, right? And this is something that even among the early generations of Islam, there used to be women scholars in the religion of Islam. Aisha radiallahu anha, people would come and ask her questions, right? And of course with the proper etiquettes behind the curtain and so on, right? And I don't like to say that about myself, but I took my ijazah of the Quran from a sheikh, from a woman scholar, Sa'ad, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on her. And she has the Senate of the Prophet ﷺ, of course was with the proper etiquettes and things like this. But she is someone, and I remember, she lived in a small apartment in one of the districts in Alexandria, Egypt. And this woman, she was blind, and she was very old in age. And throughout the whole day, from Fajr till Isha, people are going in and out. They come from different parts of the world to recite the Quran on her from memory, to get the ijazah from her. I've seen people coming from Pakistan, from Saudi Arabia, coming to this woman. She died because she had a higher level in the chain of narration, right? The people that are present now are students of her. So if you go to her, you are basically one step ahead to the chain that reaches to the Prophet ﷺ. And she would constantly, in that matter of teaching and so on. And this is someone that ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy on her. There's no difference between men and women when it comes to seeking the knowledge, but with the sincerity and following the way of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. This is what we need to do. The purpose of this is to get us encouraged. If one person or two or whatever, they sincerely wanting to take the matter seriously, mashallah, this is a great benefit. How to do that? Inshallah ta'ala, we'll talk about that tomorrow when everybody is awake. What's the practical steps? Not according to my understanding or whatever, according to the way of the people of knowledge and the people of the early generations of Islam, and what did they do practically to seek the knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah and the way of the companions. I was told that this is till 9:30, but I will stop at this point, inshallah ta'ala. If you have any questions till 9:30, and then we go pray, then we come back, as I was told, to have also questions and answers and so on. So, you have questions with regarding to the topic. If it's not in the topic, please keep it later, inshallah. Do you have anything related to this? No.
You say the companions used to study or learn 10 verses each time, and then used to act. Is that still valid today, or?
No. Is it still valid today to take 10 verses at a time and learn them and act according to them and go next? Yes, it is. Of course.
Because that time was new.
No. It's still valid. But what is meant by 10 verses, which is a good question, not necessarily from 1 to 10 and from 10 to 20. It doesn't have to be like 10 exactly, but what it meant is a set of verses, right? And that's why when you open the books of tafsir, you will find most of them, they have, like Tafsir Ibn Kathir, for example, a set of verses, and then he explains them, right? And then 2, 3 verses, 5 verses, whatever it is. So this is what is meant. Taking a set of verses that has the same context kind of thing, and people would understand what is the meaning of it, what is meant by it, and acting according to it, by the way, which is something, inshallah, also that needs to be discussed. It doesn't mean that you would do something physically, because not all the verses of the Quran has physical implementations to it physically, right? Many of these verses in the Quran has to do something with the heart, and that's actions. And when we ignore the deeds done by the heart, this is not a good thing. So every verse in the Quran has something to do with the heart, as part of purification of the heart and doing deeds done by the heart, which is basically the foundation of any goodness afterwards. And basically, all the problems that we have, when we see it physically in our life, it has a root to it in our hearts. It does not just pops up like this in one's life without any reflection of that in our hearts. The root of it, the foundation of it, is a disease in the heart. And once the disease is present in the heart, then it shows outside or doesn't show, it doesn't matter, but the disease is there. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ فِي الْجَسَدِ مُضْغَةً إِذَا صَلَحَتْ صَلَحَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ فَسَدَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ أَلَا وَهُوَ. There's a small flesh, right, in the body, that if it's sound and pure, everything else will be sound and pure. And if it's corrupt, everything else will be corrupt, and that is the heart. And that gives a very good meaning. If you don't mind me saying it very quickly, we get to see each other just from the outside appearance, right? We are not asked or ordered to check what's in the hearts of the people. This is not in our capacity. It's not permissible, right? Things in the heart will be exposed in the day of judgment. يَوْمَ تُبْلَى السَّرَائِرُ. When the secrets will be exposed, this is in the day of judgment.